As some of you know, I'm a fan of Galgun. I've reviewed the PS4 and PC versions of Galgun Double Peace I think 5 years ago, and recently it's been released on the Nintendo Switch. I was sent an email about reviewing the Switch port, so here we are. So yeah, thank you very much for the download code. In this video, we'll take a look at the Switch version of Galgun Double Peace and see how it runs on the system, and obviously, review the game. Galgun is a prime example of what you get when you combine fanservice / ecchi, a modest budget, and developers who really care about the end product and what it's supposed to be. A unique, quirky game that has its flaws, but also does certain things really well, and is very entertaining. High-effort fanservice is what this is. The premise of Galgun Double Peace is that the protagonist, a student named Hodai, is hit with an overloaded cubit arrow by mistake, because Ekoro, the angel apprentice who shoots you, got distracted by a demon girl lurking about. Because of this, the entire female student body as well as female teachers are after him. The only way to stop them is with the use of your pheromone shot. Yes, that's what that's called. The thing is, the overloaded arrow has a side effect that if he doesn't confess to his true love on the same day, he'll remain forever alone. So yeah, your typical sort of storyline for a rail shooter. You aim and shoot while the player runs around automatically, though occasionally you are given the choice of which path to take. After all these years, finally replaying this game, I kind of forgot how fun this game is with all its little details. The girls climb over cars, they climb up roofs and structures and then jump down them. Imagine seeing such a spectacle in real life. But there's more funny details. For example, often you'll look through a pillar, which you can do by holding R. It's sort of like a zoom-in X-ray vision combination in terms of how it functions. And often you'll see girls hiding behind. And after they jump out and the camera looks away for a second and you look back, there's more hiding there. How did they even get there in such a short time? It's done intentionally, of course, and it's quite funny in some situations. I also like how they play with the camera angles. There's one instance where you go underneath the school through a cave system, and then you pop your head up in a room. Everything looks clear until you slowly look behind you and notice that someone is kneeling down looking straight at you. I also quite like how girls run out of both the ladies' and the men's washrooms, which made me realize that I hadn't seen any male characters at all except for the protag. These amusing moments are everywhere, and it's actually difficult to keep up with all the happenings going on, even on one level. The girls have different ways of attacking, you'll have to avoid love letters, among other things. And one of my favorites is shouted declarations of love, because you can shoot the words before they reach you. I thought it was like a funny detail there. Sometimes you'll see girls affected by Corona, that's pronounced Kurona, who is a demon girl. The girls affected by her are immune to your shots. They've got this dark aura around them, and you can hear a little laugh before they show up on screen. If they get to you, they'll stomp on you, which may or may not be your thing. In order to deal damage, you'll have to first shoot a little chibi devil, and then you can proceed as usual. The very first part of the game serves as a tutorial, which to some extent is skippable in later playthroughs, and you probably want to play Double Peace again because there are multiple routes to take, and a lot of the shenanigans in the levels are easy to miss the first time round. The protagonist's two childhood friends, Shinobu and Maya, each have a route, which are the only two you can choose from at first. Turns out they're demon hunters, and the challenge here is to get reacquainted with them, as Hodai hasn't really spoken with them in 3 years. In order to complete your selected route, you have to both answer dialogue options correctly and complete the handful of minigames. I should also mention that you can choose a class, if that's what you want to call it, right at the beginning of the game. So basically you can choose what stats you have. So if you're not smart enough, then dialogue options that are tied to intelligence are not going to be selectable. Each route has various mini-games, which are different depending on the route. They're very ecchi indeed. Usually you need to shoot things on the girl's body, which brings up a meter on the left. After a while, it'll transition to something where you have to use the analog sticks in some way. I think the minigames are well done. They certainly fit the ecchi theme of the game, and I think they're fun too, given how they're related to some sort of thing that's happening in the story, like Shinobu getting stuck in a window or patching Maya up after she hurts herself. Occasionally there will be boss fights. Again, they are different in some way for the different routes, though they might feature similarities. Often you'll have to be careful not to hit the girls when shooting, or else affection may go down. It's pretty easy not to hit them though. There's also Doki Doki mode, which I think probably needs to be brought up. In Doki Doki mode, you can, I guess you can just kind of like pause the game and then select up to 3 girls to go into Doki Doki mode with. Your aim is in a limited amount of time to basically get all their meters up by hitting their weak points. When you do that, there'll be some sort of like explosion effect, I suppose, and it'll knock down everybody on the screen. It isn't like super helpful, it's more like, you do it for the fun of it. You'll unlock more routes as you complete the other ones, including a Shinobu and Maya route, among others. Yes, as in like those together, not separately. The selection is grayed out at the very beginning, but you can see what it says here, and you can see what you can unlock there. Let's talk about graphics for a bit. By this point in the review, you'll have noticed that the graphics aren't particularly amazing. The anime art style does help though, and the characters themselves actually look pretty decent despite the lack of pretty much any sort of complicated shading. Originally, this was a PS4 and Vita game, and the Switch port certainly is leaning towards how the Vita game looks and performs. At least from what I can tell. I don't have the Vita version, but from gameplay footage, it does look similar. Resolution is definitely below 1080p on the Switch, with frame rates at what appears to be a consistent 30 FPS. I think the game does play well. If you compare to the PS4 and PC footage, you'll notice how everything is just better there. Playing the game in 60 FPS feels nicer too, but I think the game was designed with 30 FPS in mind, as it still plays really well on the Switch. I was actually surprised. Normally, it's like, that difference is enough for me to disregard the quote inferior version, but this game strangely doesn't benefit that much from higher frame rates. Despite the graphical shortcomings, like the bland textures or low polygon models, the levels themselves are actually pretty good looking in terms of, the layout and what items fill the environment. The schools look lived in, complete with all kinds of lockers and vending machines and other things you might find in certain rooms. The school even has a layout, and it does seem like the levels interconnect. The school has 3 levels, as in, stories, with a floor for each year like you'd expect from a Japanese school. There's also other locations like the library, cafeteria, gym, pool, and changing rooms, the outside area of the school itself, the road leading up to the school and the park, and there's even a river, complete with those stone steps which you can use to cross. It just ticks all the boxes for a Japanese slice-of-life location, which I think is great. One thing I find funny is that there's only 2 models of cars in the entire game. The first one is some sort of boxy K car, like a Suzuki Wagon-R or something. And then the other one is a white sedan, which looks like it's a rear-wheel drive Toyota from the 90s or 2000s. But it's too vague. I can't say it's like, oh, it's a JZX100 or whatever. It could be a Crown or something. But I find it funny they just decided to only have 2 car models. Let me mention a few other noteworthy things about Galgun Double Piece. I really love that each student and teacher has a name. As you play, you collect more and more information on them. Like, what their weak spots are, their interests, what clubs they're in, etc. You can see what they teach / which class and year they're from. Student handbooks are items you can find during missions, which will provide you with more stats on that person, but you can gather certain information by just playing. Like I already said, the weak spots, and also by using the zoom / x-ray function, which is there to help you identify their 3 sizes. I like how well you start to know some of the girls after a couple of playthroughs. You'll start realizing that you've memorized weak spot locations, and even kind of get an idea of their personalities. Like for example, there's these green-haired twins. If you see one, you immediately start looking around because they're always together, so you're trying to spot the other one as well. And there's moments like, if there's, for example, 2 paths that can be taken, like if there's 2 flights of stairs, sometimes one will come up or down from the left one and the other one from the right. For some reason that always amuses me. So yeah, yay twins. But you'll notice unique character quirks like that with the other girls too. I want to comment on the aiming a bit. There isn't a problem on the PC version where you can use the mouse, but with the controller, aiming feels slightly imprecise in certain situations. Ever since Halo 1 on the Xbox One, console shooters have started integrating various aim assists. Doesn't matter what popular modern shooter you play on a console for, how many years now, some assists are always there. Galgun doesn't have this, which, normally that's fine, but if you try and hit something off in the distance, or something small like an item for a side quest, or maybe you're aiming for a student handbook, then it's really easy to miss. And then you do this back and forth where, no matter how many times you try to center the reticle on whatever you're aiming at, it's always too far left or too far right. By the time it's in your sights, the game has already moved on. It's not terribly awful, but it's not great. So yeah, something to keep in mind. At least 90% of the time it's fine because targets aren't that difficult to hit in normal circumstances. There are two difficulty settings, beginner and expert. From what I can tell, in expert mode you take more damage mainly. And you can't raise Hodai's attributes or stats with stuff you buy at the store. I did my first playthrough in expert mode on the Switch port, and I noticed that these items weren't even, they weren't even for sale. So the only way to raise stats is with Doki Doki mode. Speaking of raising stats and the store, you can raise your shot power and health by buying items from the store, for example. Other items exist too, which allow you to collect measurements quicker, for example, or make clothes more see-through when you zoom in. Don't worry, nothing's showing, so it's still decent. The items cost feathers, which you get by completing missions. When selecting levels, you'll notice messages on your phone, which are actually side quests. For example, they'll talk about maybe lost items or ghost sightings. Shooting those things will earn you extra feathers, so it's always worth taking a look. Plus, they'll usually mention where you want to take a look. What part of the level. The cool little detail is that since the game's story takes place during one day, your phone's battery gradually decreases. At the end of the day, it's almost out. So you can use that as a way to figure out how far into the route you are in. The Switch version includes all the DLC, in case you're wondering. So all the optional outfits are there. There is a dressing room where you can change the character's outfits and accessories. The main girls have 3 different options. You can choose their standard uniform, physette clothing, and swimsuit to whatever it is you want, even if it doesn't make any sense. That being said, I'm pretty sure, wacky clothing will not be what breaks your immersion. There's more wacky stuff going on, just generally speaking. Unfortunately, the rest of the student body can't have unique outfits. Well, you can change their outfits, but you can't do it for each one individually. Basically, it'll change all the non-main characters' clothes. I don't think having custom outfits for every single girl would be that much to ask for. I mean, you can literally choose every single one from the preview thing, but anyway. But yeah, that's what I think of Galgun Double Peace on the Nintendo Switch. Despite the lower than PS4 and PC frame rates, the game still plays very well on the Switch, and I had a lot of fun playing it. The ecchi/fanservice parts are very well thought out, and the attention to detail is very much appreciated. That's why I gave this game an S rank in my fanservice tier list video. I hope you found the video fun or enjoyable. Let me know what you think about this game, if you've played it or not, or if you're interested in the Switch port. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.